All right, welcome to another episode of the Career Talks podcast. I'm your host, Orlando Haynes. I'm excited today. You should know who I have on this episode. I've been admiring her work for some time now, and we finally connected. Mainly because I finally reached out. That's my fault, so I'll take the heat for that. She's definitely dynamic. But before we get started, just wanted to share that this episode is sponsored by the Career Accelerator Planner. It is a planner that is designed for you, the corporate professional, so you can track your wins, your performance, your contributions all in one place. We are just launching also the digital version. So if you head on over to the careeracceleratorplanner.com, again, that's careeracceleratorplanner.com. And just a reminder what this does, again, it's tracking all your performances. So when it comes time to those crucial conversations around performance reviews, merit increase, lateral or vertical promotions, you're documenting all the wins and all the value you bring to the table. So no more forgetting what that is. Again, careeracceleratorplanner.com. All right. So today's guest, love the title. Love the title. But you got to know who she is. Claire M. Davis. She is a two-time top voice, really, for job search. She's also the founder of Traction Resume. And she is I wouldn't say self-proclaimed, but she is what she mentioned, a five-time layoff survivor. So absolutely love it. Let's bring to the Career Talks podcast, Miss Claire M. Davis. How are you?
Hey, Orlando, long time overdue. I'm so
Yes.
thrilled to be here with you. Are you kidding? I have, a list of different podcasts that I listen to, different live
Hmm.
shows that I make sure I tune into. But the way that you get these gems out of these career professionals, you know what you're doing, and I'm just really honored to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying yes. And it's funny because I've watched you since we have a mutual friend, Anna Morgan, and that group of ladies that are doing the thing. And I was just watching. I was like, wait a minute. Why haven't I had Claire on? And it just, I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't need to scramble for guests. They're in my network.
No kidding. I mean, truly, if you want to find some incredible people, go look no further than stealing all of Orlando's network. He is extremely well connected, you guys. So I love Anna Morgan. And, on that point, when I started in my own business, uh, you know, from when I grew up
Hmm.
in a recruiting company. My parents had a recruiting company, and business was great, but it wasn't this collaborative, sort of supportive environment that I've found since launching Traction Resume. And it's exactly as you say, like you end up bumping into these folks who they really genuinely want to help you and help you in your business, and then help job seekers in whichever way their strengths lend themselves to. So I'm so honored to be part of this community. Anna Morgan's amazing,
Yep.
and she's an incredible yogi. Did you know this?
No,
Oh
I think
yeah.
she's posted on it either on her IG or on here, but no, didn't know
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah.
She
So,
has a
we can,
plethora of talents. Huh?
yeah, maybe one of these podcasts will have like a collective yoga session with all of us.
I'm stiff,
Namaste.
so yeah, right now I'm stiff. It'll be horrible, but it'll be fun. I'm down for it. So
Aw.
share. You just started to go into it, but share with folks more about your background, specialize in the medical sales, and how you got started launching your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I love starting here because I think that nobody really wants to be known for being laid off 5 times. Nobody wants that.
I'm right there with
And it's certainly not something a bright eyed, bushy tailed medical sales rep who came up through a pharma recruiting business ever thought that would be her story. I really felt, growing up, I was the only teen I knew who went to get a job at the city to volunteer as a daycare teacher
you.
and brought a brag book at age 13. I'm the only one I know. And you only do that crazy stuff if you grow up with interview conversation and job search conversation in the home constantly. So if you're being raised by recruiters, I feel you. We need a support group of our own. But the thing is, I really did feel I was under this guise as I went through my own career that I would have this world on a string
Mm.
because I knew how to interview. I'd had a resume and brag book from a very young age. So being hit with layoff after layoff after layoff, it was very confusing for me because in my mind, I had this thing all figured out. I thought if anybody could keep a job, it's going to be me.
Right.
And so I don't know if that's God saying, I gave you the tools, now you got to have to use them or what. But so the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is sometimes it just finds you. So what happened was after coming up in pharma recruiting, being in medical sales myself, I ended up going through 5 different layoffs. And because I had that underpinning of knowing how to brand myself and how to help get my career moving again because
Hmm.
I had to, then I was able to do it for other people. So now that's what I do. I work with medical sales folks. I specialize in one of the industries that I love the most. And I help people get back up on their feet and actually recognize that your layoff can be the biggest accelerator in your career, which I know is counterintuitive for many. And Heather's right. God's like, go build your own business. Uh,
Exactly.
so it's been an incredible journey as as I shared earlier when we were talking about knowing these different people on LinkedIn and this
Hmm.
supportive group that's here. We've all really helped each other, and I'm glad I fell into this. It's been great.
It's funny because and when you chose this topic, and I was like, oh yeah, that's great because I personally just went through it, and I went through it a couple of times as well, probably five, just as much as you throughout the years. And I was just recently laid off in October, November,
Oh,
October of
sure.
last year, but pivoted just through network and landed with a new company December, which I'll be starting actually next week. So but at the same
Mm,
time, that gap, I was loving the rest, right? I was loving that time to build up the podcast and the network. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go hard on content creation for sure and continue to do so, which I've been doing. But
mhm.
there is a moment when you get laid off and you're like, I needed this.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
I really needed this.
Huge. Now for your and I have to tell you too, my favorite people in the world are listening and chatting right now. Hi, Heather. Hi, Garen. So good to see you guys.
Appreciate
Um,
you guys.
so Orlando, did you
Mhm.
know that the layoff was coming this last October?
It was funny because the company was slowing down.
Hmm.
You're right. I saw it coming down, but
Hmm.
then I kind of felt it in the spirit. It was just like, I was like, this is because I ran the talent acquisition team for corporate in our call center hiring,
Hmm.
and that dramatically dropped off, dramatically.
Got it.
So I was like, okay, a manager got a 6-figure salary, and at some point, I'm like, I got nothing to do. Literally, you can run reports, go back through last year's data, see the performance, but performance was tracked weekly and monthly in the reporting I was doing. So
Hmm.
executive leadership team all knew. And then when it came to that point, I was like, it was funny because I told my wife a week before, I was like, it's coming because we just completely slowed down. Got
Uh,
the call, pulled into the office, had the conversation. It was quick, but I knew it. I wasn't concerned about it. I was just like, oh my God, I needed a break. I
yeah.
needed a break. And I really wasn't even trying to look until maybe February,
Hmm.
but it just came
Sure.
through a prior network that the opportunity fell in my lap. Much better as a former call center manager. then,
Yes. Yes. I'm like,
oh yeah, hard,
I love.
hard. It is hard.
Wow.
Yeah, you know the pain, Heather. And it just came about. Now the new role with a larger company
Hmm.
um, is more aligned with what my skill set is. And talent acquisition is, but I was transitioning. I knew of myself I wanted to do more what I'm doing now. So
Hmm.
the visibility, I do speaking, the content creation, all this stuff, it aligns because I was like, oh wow, this is perfect.
Hmm.
Perfect, perfect. And now I'm an individual contributor versus managing. I'm like, that's even cool too. I don't have to worry about anybody else. And not that it was a bad thing, but it's just like 15 years of management. You get a
I
break.
hear you.
Take the break.
I hear you. Well, and I think there's a stigma between, during your career of you go into management and then can you get back to being a sole contributor, right?
Yeah.
And of course you can. And I think that it's
Ooh,
actually really powerful to do because, management and leadership are so closely intertwined, but they're very different. And I feel like once you manage people, then you key in on some things like where you want to really lean into a different skill set, like you're talking about. right?
Hmm.
So being able to do that is sometimes rare, and I'm really excited for you. So,
Yeah, I appreciate it. Definitely excited.
yeah, good
All
for
right, so
you.
let's talk about what clients, your clients, they're coming to you,
Mhm.
and love the promo video you did, right? You you're saying, hey, there's some crap information that's out there about being laid off.
Yes, there
Let's
is.
let's dive into that. What's the negative or what's the wrong information, and then we'll jump into what's the correct information.
Okay. And I want to set a massive disclaimer here because I think that, being on LinkedIn a lot, you see a lot of really well-meaning advice. Like a lot of
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
well-meaning people out there who are saying, network and post that you're looking for work and get right out on the internet right away. And the thing is, there are so many different ways that people find roles. But
Hmm.
in my experience, having been through this now so many times, and I'm sure, Orlando, you're going to know this better than most too, that there are some things that we have to handle first. So that's really where I want to meet people because not everyone has been through 4 layoffs before and can even pick up on the fact that, oh, my boss is really stressed out lately. And in fact, he's stopped texting me for the last 2 weeks.
Mm.
And then so instead, sometimes they can get upset about that and just think like, "Oh, I've got a bad boss." But what's happening is up at the top, they are dealing with things that could roll downhill in the form of a layoff. So like when you were saying that you were able to key into, you know what, there's nothing to do here. I'm starting to feel this lull. Not everybody knows that. So if you don't see it coming, I want to just lay it out there on the table what to do first.
Mm.
Because what I see on the internet lately, and in fact, what somebody just texted me last night was that their friend encouraged them to jump on Chat GPT, which is the new black, right? I mean, it's like
Right.
so cool now. It's so cool. I went to go try it out, and it the system is no longer working
Yeah,
because it's overloaded. So
exactly.
here's one for the humans, right? AI can't handle it all. Thank God we're not being taken over by robots yet. But anyway, so let's get back. So I think that some of the poor advice that I've been seeing lately is use Chat GPT to write your resume to each job that you want to apply
Mm.
or to write a resume quickly and then blast it out to everyone. That's something I'm hearing a lot. I'm hearing that right when you hear of a layoff, turn your phone off, get to a yoga class, and just just take a break. Take a total mental break. Take a step back. I'm also seeing, post immediately on LinkedIn. Let your network help you. And those three things in particular all have their own challenges, and they're
Yeah.
really not going to help you in that situation. And how I think of it is like this. I've heard a layoff described as it feels like my house is on fire. I'm depressed. I don't feel worthy anymore. I'm afraid to drive home to face my wife, right?
Hmm.
It's a monumental shift. It can be so incredibly traumatic. But here's the thing. Let's take that first example. Say your house is on fire. What are you going to do? You're not going to tweet about it. Hopefully, you're not going to meditate. And you're also not going to sit down and start drawing out your fire escape plan right now. That's not the time. Your job is to grab your birth certificate, your kids, and your cat and get out, right?
Love it. Love
So
it.
there are things that need to happen first. So while there are many avenues, you can do Chat GPT, you can post on LinkedIn, there are things we have to take care of first to get out of that fire situation. So, are you hearing any kind of advice that makes you sort of scratch your head, Orlando, when you're on the
It,
internet lately?
it's funny because you're saying all the things that I've recently seen as well too.
Mhm,
Some of it, yeah, like you said, it has a certain degree. I think it depends on where the individual is, their
mhm,
mental state, all these things to because you can't just jump right back into it.
right,
Your
right.
financial situation may warrant it,
Mhm,
but depending on if you're coming from a toxic situation, you're like, okay, it's great. You may jump back into a worse situation, not knowing it, just so you can pay bills. So I think
mhm,
this is so many nuances to it. But I love the fact that you're saying, really, just and correct me if I'm wrong. It's like you kind of have a plan prior to. Don't plan in the midst of the disaster. Really, don't try to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I was talking with a gentleman last week, and he's starting to see these sort of changes in the company. His boss is going very quiet. They're slowing down on contracts that they were going to have
Hmm.
penned by December, and he's starting to feel, as you did, the spidey senses are there, saying, "Well, a layoff could be coming." And so, what's the plan? The first couple things that you need to do, and this applies. So, if you're listening and you think that you're seeing these signs happen, if you're picking up on some things that feel irregular at work or feel that are making you even feel a little bit stressed out about management or where is this going, there are probably things happening beyond your control that we need to pay attention to. So, whether you're seeing the signs or whether you just got the Zoom call, the conference call, or the the email saying that unfortunately your position's been eliminated. In either case, this next piece applies. So, the very first thing you'll want to do is you've got to log your wins. You've got to, and this is before we take a mental break. This is before you do anything else. What will carry you through to your next opportunity and all of your career beyond is knowing the impact that you made when you were at this place of work. And what happens all the time is that start working with somebody and they'll say, "Oh, yeah, well, I didn't have time to grab my results before they turned my computer off." And here's the deal. When you get laid off, you do not know how long you'll have access to your records. And I'm not saying scrape the system or do illegal things, but you do need to know the results of the work that you've been doing. And so the very first thing you must do, I implore you, is to go back on your computer, should you be able to, or if that's been shut off, sit in a quiet place, grab a pen and a paper and start jotting down all of the metrics that you remember that you touched. And there are a lot of different things that you can start to remember, you can start to recall. So, selfishly, I love working with salespeople because they are very in tune with how to
Absolutely.
measure their impact. But
Hmm.
your impact can be measured in a variety of ways. So you can be talking about how many people you've onboarded. You can be measuring how quickly you took a project from non-existent to completion. You can even be measuring how happy your customers are now that they're working with you versus how it was 6 months ago. So you've got to start measuring how you had an impact on your business. You got to remember those awards that you got.
Yep.
Okay. So that's number one. We need to make sure that we know the metrics of where we were. And the second thing that is equally important is grab that piece of paper or get back into your email and log every single person that you know. So, when we are looking to further our career and start that job search, start reaching out, start engaging again, start asking around for opportunities, if we haven't built the network, we
Right.
don't have anybody to talk with, right? So it's just as important to log your results and to make sure that you start jotting down everybody you know that you worked with, managers, yeah, exactly. Summer, know the metrics, managers, your manager's manager, the clients that you worked with, people who you have made an impact on and who might be useful to you and who you could be useful to as well in the future. So those are my big two, like the very first things I'd recommend anybody do, even before you update your resume.
Now that's good because I've never heard the log your network piece before. That's really, really good. And it's but keep going, keep going. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, no, this is great. Well, and too, it's
Hmm.
funny when I pulled my own clients last year. I just did a post about this recently.
Hmm.
But I pulled my own clients because I work with a lot of people. In fact, I think it was like over 55 people last year who I was working with who had been recently laid off. So
Got it. Wow.
medical sales
Hmm.
professionals come to me of all different stages of career. Sometimes they're executives, they're looking to go to the C level. Sometimes they're reps who want to get promoted. And oftentimes they're people who either need to change jobs or were forced by a layoff or something other than that to get a new job. So I was asking those who were laid off, did you regret it?
Mm.
Do you wish it didn't happen? And Orlando, I was shocked by the results. And I bet you can guess what they said.
They're probably like, no,
Not
not at
one.
all.
Not one. Not one person said, "Oh, I wish I had stayed on with XYZ Medical."
Hmm.
And I hope that's not the real name of a company, by the way. I
No,
don't
right?
think it is. But not one really regretted what happened. Now,
Hmm.
it may take a time before they feel that way. And generally in
Yeah.
my experience, it takes about 1 to 2 years um, for people to say, "You know what? It was for the best."
Mm.
Because as people, we learn through challenge. And I truly believe through my career, through the careers of people whom I've helped, it's not through taking, an easy avenue that they learned or grew as a professional. It was through challenge.
Yeah.
And so what happens is sometimes the feedback I get is, okay, I got laid off, but you know what? I was thinking about leaving anyway. That's very common. I hear that a lot. Or, you know what? It had the business had taken a different turn and started valuing or devaluing things that I don't agree with. And so it really wasn't a good fit anymore. Or you know what? The pressure that was happening at the top that I wasn't even aware of was turning my colleagues, managers, XYZ into toxic people to work with. And I had to go. And I didn't do it because I don't like change, because none of us like change. And I'm so glad that I was pushed in another direction. And my favorite, Claire, I wish I would have left sooner because the new path I'm on lights me up like the old path never could. And
Mm.
that's the honest that's those are words straight from my clients. And I
So,
think yeah,
okay, go ahead, go ahead, finish your statement.
I think that it takes that tearing yourself out of the not even tearing yourself, but I think it takes that sudden change, that challenge, that forced move to be able
Hmm.
to really reset. Otherwise, most often, and there's so much science behind this, most often we would rather endure hardship than change. Most of us.
Wow. Hmm.
It's it's just an evolutionary trait. Humans tend to fear change, resist change, right? I mean, rather than make a change, that we'd rather put up with the challenges that we're dealing with.
Wow. So here's a follow up question because you said there's that 1 to 2 year time frame
Mhm.
where they're kind of coming to, coping with that. Is that due to the emotional tie, the physical tie, the relationships, and so invested in an employer or in the environment, in the culture, in the team, that it feels like this bad breakup, and it's like, oh my god, I had so
Mhm.
much invested, and now the breakup is happening. I can't even cope with it until this time frame. It takes this long, like a normal personal relationship, where they say for every couple of years it takes a year to to get over it. Um, what's what are those key things that are having folks you know really trying to deal with that for so long? Because that seems like a long time.
Yes. It does seem like a long time. And I think there could be an element to the relational feeling there
Hmm.
that people, need to heal. And I mean, like it or not, and that's a great point. I'm sorry, I was
Yeah,
just looking at Heather's comment. That's
yeah.
that's outstanding. So yeah. So so that's a great question. I would say that it really depends on what fulfillment you had received from working. If you're working, if your experience was really relational, you felt like your employer was like a family, right? Maybe in their mission statement they say that we're like a family here, which I think is a very dangerous concept because it's really hard if grandma's not performing to fire grandma, right? I mean, like that's not going to work out. So I think that it can be because you feel that it's in some way like a breakup.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And frankly, when we spend half of our waking hours or more
Yeah.
with the people who we're working with, it can be a huge schism. It can feel that way, like a breakup. I think that's very valid. Um, why I think that it takes so long as well is because we sink so much of our pride and self worth in what we do for a living. If you think about it, as Americans, and this isn't true of all cultures, the other cultures have very different questions that they ask each other upon first meeting. But one of the very first questions that we ask each other, if you're from, the United States, is, so what do you do for a living?
Yep.
Which
Yep.
tells me that we place a huge priority on knowing who we are by what we do for work. And if you look around LinkedIn, I bet you if we searched right now, Orlando, we would see over 2,000 posts just today that say, you are not your job. Am I
Right.
right? We all
Right.
see that. And that's true, but as a culture, we tend to place our importance on the activities that we do for work.
Yeah.
And so when those are suddenly ended, even though we know, hopefully we know, it's a business decision, the truth is we feel like we failed. We failed. We couldn't
Yeah.
stay. We weren't valuable enough, right? And that's normally not the truth. It's just how we perceive that. It's a lot of times how we ingest this new radical situation of being cut free from the thing that was tethering us to our purpose.
Mm, mm.
And that's, I think, why it takes so long, because it starts you down this new path of, well, what is my purpose now? Right?
Right.
Did you feel that at all when you were maybe laid off your first time? Now you're seasoned layoffer, so
Yeah.
well, I'm so glad we're in the same club. But,
Exactly.
did you feel that way in the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I believe so. I think the first initial thoughts were all the same.
Mhm,
Like you mentioned earlier, was I worthy enough? Where did it go wrong? Is this
mhm,
for me? Am I in the right industry? Et cetera, et cetera. After going through it so many times, learning from that, I'm like, okay, if it was, I said, okay, I took it upon myself to say, okay, maybe it was performance and they just never told me, right? I don't know.
mhm,
They never said the word fired, but there was, you see additional things happening around you that led, I wasn't the sole person being laid off. So I
mhm,
said, well, let me just get better. How can I get better?
mhm.
And then when it still happened, I'm like, God, dog, what's happening?
Right,
I'm
you're
like,
like,
I'm
"Is it?"
performing. Yeah. Is it me?
Right, I
So it
know.
does challenge you. And then at some point I got numb. I'm like, you know what? This wasn't the journey for me anyway.
Yeah,
Um, and even with the, like I said, even with the last one, I was kind of like, I need something different. I
yeah,
need something different, and almost like I spoke it into an existence, and it happened. So definitely didn't regret anything. Great organization, great culture, but I knew it was time for me to go though, and it just
yeah.
happened to work out in the better. But yeah, I can tell you go through that emotional change over and over, over and
Mhm.
over. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It
From
is, but,
yeah.
without having had to do it, do you
hmm
think that down the road you would recognize when something wasn't a fit as clearly as you did?
Early on, no. I think
Mhm.
early on it was need a paycheck.
Yeah. Right.
Later on, it was like I need the right fit. And
Yeah.
even through my most recent interview process, I was like, here's where I'm at. I kept saying this in every interview. I was like, here's where I'm at in my career. Let me know you what I stand and what's going to make me partner with the company with great advice clicks.
I love it. I
It
love
just
it. If
clicks.
that's not the art of detachment, I don't know what is. You're like, "Try to hire me. Just
Yeah,
try."
yeah.
I
This is
love
a
it.
partnership.
Yes.
Let me tell
Yes.
you. Yeah. So that's where I've been in the last, several years of my life with career. Like you need to know where I'm coming from to see if this is a match. Because this is again like a relationship. It's a marriage.
Right.
And I think if we take that more of that type of posture, it'll be easier.
Mhm.
Um, versus the hey, I need the quick check, or it's a 30% increase. But what
Mhm.
if the culture's bad? You just looked at the monetary gain. and put yourself back into a bad situation. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I was staking my claim like this is what you're getting, and this is what I
Mhm.
want. If it doesn't mesh, then let's move on.
Right. Because you would had at that point had experience
Hmm.
with where you thrive, and that you can thrive in a variety of places. This is where I feel a lot of us get stuck, is when we start our career, say we go to college or not, say we get our specialty, or we jump into a job and we're there for like 7 years. I don't know what that's like having this many layoffs, but I can imagine what it would be like in 7 years. And you start to get this feeling of, this is who I am, this is what I'm good at.
Hmm.
The end. Right? So it's not often that when I meet somebody and they have been in a career for a certain amount of time, that they have taken the opportunity to really give themselves that opportunity to get creative, or to think through what's made them successful, or to
Hmm.
think about what else there is out there for them, or to dream a little on what else is possible for me, unless you have to make that change. Now, some people are able to do it. I mean, some people change careers all the time and find that they're in
Yeah.
a ill-fitting career all the time and they change. But there's something about the fast track of having to do it when you're laid off. And I think that the layoff causes us to meet this head on and so unexpectedly that it's like a trial by fire.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you have to adapt, because you have to pay your bills at the end of the month. You've
Yeah.
got to make your mortgage, right? So I think that being laid off gives us incredible tools that we don't even know that we have until we're in a situation where we're, at hitting the bottom and we need to go
Yeah.
up. And so one of those, for example, is, we talked about building that network again. So you write down all the people you've worked with, all your clients, the folks that you've interacted with. And then what do we do with it? You start nurturing your network. And if you're here on LinkedIn, you already know the power of this.
Yep.
I mean, Orlando and I met through LinkedIn. Like, networking is the name of the game. And what's interesting to me is, a lot of times when I speak with folks who have had a beautiful career, like, they've just gone from place to place to place, and they finally get laid off. Not finally, but they end up getting laid off, and then they call me, and I say, okay, well, what are you doing now? And they'll say, okay, well, I'm applying like to 20 jobs a week on LinkedIn. I'm sending my resume like everywhere. And I said, okay, how did you get your favorite job? Oh, well, I knew Mike because his neighbor and I used to do CrossFit, and then he mentioned that he had this opening. See, it's through that network. And so once we have that space and that need to move forward in our career, to get some real career momentum, we can start
Hmm.
investing in that network, because right when that fire started in our house, we got out and started doing the things that mattered first. Grab your network, grab your results, and your kids
Love
and
it.
your cat and your birth certificate and all those things. But you know what I mean? Like, truly, that's really got to be the very first thing that we do. And the beauty is that so many times, if we sit and we take a minute to really think, okay, well, how did I get my last two jobs? Very
Hmm.
likely one of them was through somebody, the hidden job market, right? That is a somehow a controversial topic right now. I don't know.
No.
It's just talking to people. And so I think that's something that we don't even realize that we have or have to do until we're in this situation where we're like, well, we better try something new, because what we were doing before is
Yeah.
is done now, and now we have to move forward.
It's funny you bring that up because the hidden job market. I had Sarah Johnson on Johnston. I think about a week and a half ago. That was the topic.
Yeah.
But I've always said, and share your thoughts on this too, Claire. Is I say the hidden job market is only hidden to those that are not well networked.
Mhm.
All right. So if you're like you said, if you're not asking the questions, the relationships, the versus just the post and pray, it's gonna seem hidden. But if you're
Mhm.
networked It's just a matter of you giving your network the proper tools to, kind of be an advocate for you out there in the space you're trying to land your next career.
Yes, absolutely. One thing I was listening to that show earlier this week, and one thing you mentioned was from Dr. Remind me her name.
Dr. Graham?
Um, yes, and
Yep.
she,
Hmm.
speaks a lot about how we've got to be really specific about what we're asking for with our network. And so if you're listening here
Hmm.
and you're thinking, I've been laid off and I will do anything. Like, listen, I've been there too. When you're like, I will, sweep streets, or I will serve, French fries, or whatever. Like, you got to get by while you're making your career move, right? While you're doing your strategy. But when you're
Yeah.
at a party and someone says, "Oh, you're laid off. Well, okay, you're looking for work. What do you want to do?" You've got to have an answer for them.
Yeah.
And when you have an answer, when you have something specific that you are looking for, that's when people know how to help you. Because then when they hear of opportunities, if we just give them a vague target and say, "Well, I'm looking for marketing roles." Well, that is a huge ocean of like
Exactly.
that's really hard to match
Exactly.
with an opportunity because it is so vague, right? So you want to be really specific. So if you have the chance, you've grabbed your network, you've got your results written down, start thinking about what it is you want to do next. And just like Orlando's sharing, you can get to you can really get to lean into the skill set that you want, that you want to try. And once you're able to kind of talk about it and share that with people, then they know how to talk about you. So you want to make it very, very easy for them. So instead of, "I want to do marketing roles," you could say something like, "I'm really passionate about tech. And I think that digital marketing is now the future of tech. So what I'd like to do is some ghostwriting as a consultant for a digital marketing company."
Mm.
Boom. I mean, that is an extremely specific target, so that when they're talking to their friend over at, you know, I don't know, Amazon,
ABC
right?
company.
Or
Yeah. Oh
anyway,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's it really pays to be very clear.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said earlier, I think we do a lot of we we maneuver out of fear once the layoff happens versus taking that self-reflection inventory. Like, great, let's jot down your wins. I don't know if enough people do that first. I think a panic sets in sometimes, fear, depending on where you at. Again, financially, you may be, hey, rest, I'll take the break. And we still don't think about all the contributions. And then it's like, okay, who do we know? It's the first thought is, let me get my resume when I'm ready to jump back out there, whether
Mhm.
it's immediate or later. Let me get my resume up to date. And then is LinkedIn brush, is that looking good? Is the photo
Mhm.
right? Is the backdrop right? And then we just post and pray again. Like
Yeah.
we're maneuvering out of fear versus out of our talent and our potential.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And maneuvering out of fear is going to prevent us to really seeing what opportunity is there.
Yeah.
Where what do we want to target? If we What's really neat about gathering your wins before you need them is
Mhm.
just in the act of writing down the accomplishments that you've had at work, or the projects you're working on at work, or the teams you're helping win at work. You're going to start boosting your own confidence. You might
Yeah.
not even realize it, but once we go back and we look at the positive impact that we have anywhere, that's shown to improve our mental performance, because it's a mood enhancer. So it's a powerful exercise in itself. And the reason you want to do it first is because if you are alerted that you are going to be laid off, you have a finite opportunity to gather that information. It might be by the afternoon, or
Yeah.
they might have turned your computer off before they called you. So it really pays. If you're listening now and you are employed, please start logging your wins. And I
Yeah.
know a guy who's got an incredible results tracker. You might check it
Absolutely.
out. So it really does help, and it'll help you feel better too,
Hmm.
because like we were talking about, how it's such a hit to the pride. It
Yeah.
really smacks you. And when you start to remember the value that you delivered and the purpose you have and the impact you make, it will help you with your emotional, it'll support you emotionally and mentally as well as you're going through the process. Then you'll
Yep.
have then you're ready for later on, but the initial steps you've got to take.
As you was talking, it hit me too that you may find that you may need to make a career pivot.
Hmm.
You've jotted down so much stuff that you're like, wow, I'm a phenomenal project manager. Let me get out of this and go into project management,
Yeah.
which would be great. So, not sure if you hear a little echo. I hear it now.
Oh, can you hear me now? Is that
I
changed
can
at
hear you.
all? Is that
Okay.
better?
Yep.
Okay.
All good. All good.
Okay.
So that's yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. Share with us the additional items, or even if it's a personal story or from a client that you've worked with,
Mhm.
where once they've got past the emotional state, uh, and you help them through tracking their wins, leveraging their network. What
Mhm.
additional things that you've seen that may have been a common theme that you was like, oh, here's an opportunity to educate you job seekers?
Yeah. Something that I find is that we have a greater, more supportive network than we even realize. And it wasn't until I was laid off, I think probably the second time. The first time I kept really quiet, you guys, I was terrified. I remember the drive home. I cried all the way down I-80 East and thought, I'll never get back into marketing. That was the first company, right? And it was the gentlest layoff of all, because the CEO herself had me in her office and broke the news, and we were both torn apart.
Oh wow.
We were both torn up about it. So the next thing that you do when you start, you've built this network. Okay, you've got your list of people and you're ready. So at this point, you can take a little bit of time, right? You take a little time to get your mind right. Start reaching out to your network. And the best way to do it, in my experience, is to start with gratitude. It's going to help
Mm.
you in two ways. Number one, it's going to fend off the um, emotional, what should we term it, Orlando? Sometimes we can't help but go to that place of frustration when we're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about our layoff, especially when it's fresh.
Mm.
And listen, guys, I feel you. It's a world rocking sensation. Okay, it's uncomfortable. It's financially stressful. It can feel embarrassing, shameful, all those things. Even though it shouldn't, it does.
Yeah.
So when we start with gratitude, it will, number one, help you to keep the conversation positive or more positive.
Hmm.
The second thing that it's going to do, it's going to give you something to talk about. Because a lot of times what I hear is, okay, Claire, well, I know that I need to start reaching out, but I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell people. I mean, first of all, I'm embarrassed because now I'm on the job market and Ricky and Bobby and Sarah and Josie, like over there, are fully employed. And what's wrong with me? Right. Well, nothing's wrong with you, but sometimes it prevents us from reaching out at all. So when we start with gratitude, it can be as simple as something like this. Hey, Frank, thank you so much for all the support you've given me over the years. I remember back to the time when you and I were both heads down working on that Excel sheet for 32 hours straight, and I'll never forget it. Give me a shout if I can ever do anything for you. Right?
Love that.
Simple.
That's good.
Start off the cuff. But that's a great place to start. It's going to start getting your conversations going, and you're building on the law of reciprocity. So the more
Mm.
value that we give, and I know Orlando's experience this because he gives a ton of value here on this channel. But when we start to pay it forward in a way, or lean into the law of reciprocity, we're going to start getting things back. So a lot of times you'll get a response to that message, and it'll be a good one. It'll be like, "Oh, thanks so much. How are you doing?" Right? Which will make you feel good. They feel good because you made them feel good because of the thank you. It's a win-win all around, and it gets you moving. Because when we are in that place of not feeling confident in our skills, we can feel very stuck. And so
Hmm.
this way, it gets the conversations going again and in the right direction, because of that gratitude. Have you tried this before, Orlando?
I have. I
Okay.
definitely have. And one of the things I do is I keep connections, right? I keep those conversations going post me exiting the company, so it doesn't feel cold. It's almost,
Hmm.
sometimes folks are fair because they haven't talked to somebody in 2 years, and it's not,
Hmm.
now I need your help.
Yeah.
But where were you, 6 months ago to say hello or whatever? But
Right.
I wonder if, and this is just as you were talking, are we afraid to tell our network because sometimes the reaction is not what we want? There's that immediate, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like
Mhm.
you're less than, like, oh, you're one of those. And it's like,
Oh.
wait a minute. I don't need your guilt. I don't need that. That's not what I need. Right. Maybe we educate friends and networks to say, hey, how can I help you? Okay, great. How can I help you?
Hmm.
Like really turn it into a more of a positive conversation versus, oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man, because that, all that does is add a second layer, a third layer, whatever, sixth layer of depression or whatever the feeling you're feeling at that point, right? That pride kicks up. You're like, I don't want to tell Joe and Susan that this happened. They're gonna be like,
Hmm.
oh, it's like I don't need that. Just, hey, like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, like, did that happen? Okay, how can I help you? Tell me,
Yeah.
what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
so that's
smart
it.
pivot.
Yeah, but I think that's funny. I think, but yeah, definitely, like you said, with I love that phrase, and good thing this is recorded, so I'll run it back, send it to you. You need to create a white sheet on responses on how to reach out to your
Yeah,
uh
absolutely.
like a
You know,
downloadable ebook or something.
yeah, there's one more power move that I love introducing to people. And this is because other than writing medical sales resumes and doing interview prep, I geek out hard on behavioral engineering and the power of positive ethical persuasion. And one of the things that can help us to build the law of reciprocity, right? So we're
Hmm.
generating the value for other people, and so thus we would receive value in return, is also building our credibility. And so, a quick way to do this while also helping the people we're speaking with is by introducing two people that need to know each other. So, as we're going through this new exercise of reaching out systematically to everybody who we've written down on that sheet, all the people that we know, um, career wise and personally, when you have that aha moment of, oh my gosh, Orlando, I, I think you and Terry would definitely get along. Do you want me to introduce you? I think you guys would have a lot to talk about XYZ.
Hmm.
That is actually a huge authority builder. And what's neat about it is it gives you a bit of a mood boost. And this is scientifically proven. It gives you a mood boost because you feel like you have just exacted on your purpose. You've just done something of value for two people by connecting them and potentially brewing up an opportunity for them. So that's something you can do as well. If you're in the DMs and you're like, I don't know what to talk about, forget what I'm thanking them for. Maybe I just want to say hi. And then you're chatting and you're the third message in and you think, oh, French gardening, you're French gardening. I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Dr. Sigmund. His wife just wrote a book on French gardening or French gardens, I think. Okay. So that's another one as well that can be tried. Just a little
Well,
caveat there, but any way to get the conversation to be a positive one is going to be
hmm,
really powerful for you guys.
yeah, you got to create an ebook around that, because I don't know if anyone that I hear and listen to talk about that, how to positively impact your network. So one, it doesn't feel awkward. Two,
Hmm.
there's that reciprocity, of a value exchange there. And three, I think it's just overall being a good person, right? You just, like, hey, I'm genuinely trying to help you out because I know someone who does gardening, et cetera,
Yeah.
and it helps you out. And I kind of call that the human resource model in my head. It's a play on words where you help other folks, right? In
Mm-hmm.
your job search. Maybe you have a network, you're working with a recruiter or whatever. You're not a fit, but you know someone that is. Make that
Mm-hmm.
introduction. Be a
Mm-hmm.
resource. Be a resource. So I love that point that you make it. Love it. Love it. Share with us, and I'm trying to watch the time because I can have you on here for hours, and we got work to do.
We can chat, can't we? We can chat. I love it.
um, where's do you have programs that you're helping? No, you know what? Let me start with this one.
Mhm.
What made you name your company Traction Resume?
Well, I knew I wanted to help in the healthcare industry.
Okay.
And when I was thinking back to the system that I used each time I got laid off, which would be a whole other podcast, right? But each time I was laid off, I started doing the same routine. And we talked a little bit about it, the
Hmm.
results, the network, how to reach out systematically. And there is more. So when I was thinking back to what word would really embody that, that like getting traction back in my career again, there it was, traction resume. So it just sort of
That's
came.
That's either ebook or physical book or program.
I
That's
love
dope.
it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you offer or do you, is majority of your clients all sales? 'Cause I know you're niche in that space because of your background.
Mhm.
Do you help other folks that are listening or catch the replay and that you can support in their career transitions and growth?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking. So, if you want to find out how to work with me, all you have to do is send me a DM on LinkedIn. Just hit my inbox and send me a message and tell me what's going on. And then I'll let you know if we're the right fit or if there's someone who I feel like could be a better solution to what you're going through right now. So, just send me a message and I'm happy to help you.
Awesome. What are some of your goals for this year?
Ooh, my goals for this year.
Yeah.
So, I'm working on a course like everybody and their
Oh.
mother, right? And the other piece that's come out is, how we talk a lot about results.
Hmm.
Well, even though we are very well meaning and we commit and we swear and we've put a New Year's resolution behind it, a lot of times we forget to actually make sure that we go back and record the results every once in a while. So
Hmm.
I'm building something right now. If you're interested, just send me a DM. And in this case, if you will hashtag results, I'll keep you in the loop about what I'm building that will help you to stay on track all career long, and you can be in part of the beta program to launch in February. And that's all I can say because it's only built so far. But what I think needs to become more of the norm is, we have people who handle our finances. We've got people who handle our education. We've got people who help to keep us on track with fitness and health and wellness, but rarely do we have people who are in our corner as our own career concierge. And I
Yeah.
think that it needs to be more common because it will take seasons like this where tens of thousands of people are getting laid off and now starting at square one with what to do off the table by having somebody in your corner who is going to keep you on track and support you whenever the changes come in your career. It's totally natural. So if you want to be first in the know on that, just hashtag results in a DM to me, and be happy to tell you about the program.
Absolutely. I'm going to be the first partaker. So look for,
All right.
I'm going to follow the process. Absolutely follow the
Oh,
process. I'm not going to
I'm
leverage the
honored.
fact that we're here talking. No, I'm going to follow the process. But, let me shout out your folks that are just chiming in, Summer
Hey
and
guys,
Heather. And who else did I miss? Did I miss anyone else?
Summer,
But they are
Garen, we've got
Garen
yeah,
earlier. Yep. These ladies are chiming in and thank you for joining, and JR
Joey.
as well. So let me ask you this final question as we come to a close. Definitely got to have you back on. Is what is your daily mantra, Claire? What gets you up?
Keep going. My
Mm,
daily mantra is keep going. It was from the first time that I got laid off back in 20. I'm gonna date myself. Back in the 2000s. We don't need to get specific right now. But you know what? The thing is that people are here all around you to support you,
mhm,
and people still like working and hiring people they like. Okay, people like working with people they like. So go talk to more people, and they will support you. And all you have to do is get specific about what you want, manifest it like Orlando does, right? And
Hmm.
and really, layoffs can be one of the most incredible learning experiences, and it can really ramp up your efforts in your career, from networking to finding new strengths to learning new skills to set yourself apart. So hang in there and just keep going, because it's going to be okay. Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. Claire, thank you so much for coming on and just dropping so many gems. Like I said earlier and prior to us joining, I've been a fan of yours for a while, seeing your content and just how you come across, just authentic, right? And just with
Mm.
true care for folks and wanting to help. So I appreciate you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Orlando. This is such a treat. When I was looking at your past guest list, I was like, okay, be ready, be ready, be ready. It's a big deal. I'm so honored to be here. And you know what? Through my career, I've had plenty of help and generous people who've guided me. So it's really my honor to pay it forward to anybody who needs help in this situation. So I thank you so much for having me on and spreading this message further. It's awesome.
Thank you. So I'm gonna close this out with a quick video. We'll chat with you behind the scenes. But folks, thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.